YouTube. My name is Jack, and today we're going to talk about how to navigate the informational asymmetry that exists between seekers and group leaders when it comes to determining whether initiatory ritual is right for you. This is something I've talked about a little bit previously. I have a video on consent and initiation and how to handle questions of consent in a situation where, because someone is kind of going into initiation blind, there's a real sense in which they can't give fully informed consent. So how do we navigate that and make sure that people are in as good a place as possible and as comfortable as possible and able to give proper consent to kind of what's going to happen in initiation? So I have a previous video where I talk about that. What I'm thinking about right now is not so much the initiation ritual itself, but everything that comes after. So how do you, as a seeker, know that initiatory ritual is going to scratch the itch for you, is going to give you the kind of fulfillment that you're looking for? And the honest answer is you don't. You just don't. But there are a number of ways that seekers and coven leaders alike sort of try to help bridge that gap so that even though you can't experience initiatory ritual until you're initiated, you can maybe try to get a sense of whether this is the right thing for you. Because ultimately no one wants a situation where someone has been initiated and then realizes, oh no, this is not what I wanted to sign up for, I'm out, right? That's a waste of everyone's time. It's a waste of the coven leader's time, it's a waste of the new initiate's time. Like, our goal is only to be initiating people who are going to get value out of doing initiatory ritual. And so, there's a lot that you have to think about just with how do we assess that? In the US, it's very common for covens to run their seekers groups as something that people tend to call an outer court. This is a term that is pretty localized to the US, and sometimes people use the term outer court just to mean, like, generally any kind of pre-initiatory seekers group. Other times people use outer court to mean something very specific, which is a type of training group where you do ritual that looks very similar to Wicca. The phrase that I tend to use is, it looks like Wicca with the serial numbers buffed off. So in a lot of the US, it's very common for seekers with a group to be doing ritual that in many ways is very structurally similar to what they might experience in an initiatory context, and that is different in some notable ways. But the idea is, with that kind of model, the idea is to give the seeker as close of an experience as possible to what initiatory ritual would be like, while still respecting the oaths of the coven leaders and making sure that they're not doing anything that they feel is inappropriate or is too close to what initiatory ritual looks like. Personally, I don't operate on that model. I don't do anything that resembles Wiccan ritual with my seekers, largely because I am, first off, I'm a pearl clutcher about my oath, right? Like, my personal boundaries, my personal lines around the oath are, there's really a hair trigger on them. And there's a lot that makes me uncomfortable that doesn't make a lot of other people uncomfortable, which is totally normal and totally fine. Oaths are personal. Each witch takes an oath and then interprets that oath for themselves, and their oath is between them and the gods. So just because there are things that other people do in their seekers groups that I wouldn't necessarily do in mine, or vice versa, things that I'm willing to talk about that other people might not talk about with their seekers groups, doesn't mean that anyone is doing something inappropriate or violating their oaths. It just means that different people have different comfort levels, and that's a very normal thing. But I don't like the idea of doing ritual that resembles Wiccan ritual, because for one thing, it's a little too close for comfort for me. But for another thing, I really feel like in order for it to be different enough from initiatory Wiccan ritual that it would feel comfortable to my oath, I would have to remove so many elements that at that point, like, why are you even bothering to do? I'm on do not disturb mode. Why did I get a text? We'll deal with that later. At that point, why are you even bothering to do ritual that looks kind of Wiccan, right? If you're going to strip away all of the context, if you're going to strip away all of the lore, all of the teachings, like everything that makes it what it is in a Wiccan context, I personally am really of the feeling that when we reach that point, it's no longer in order for it to be different enough from initiatory ritual that I'd be comfortable doing it with my seekers, it has to be so different that it no longer provides a reflective experience of like what initiatory ritual might be like. So I just don't do that. I do ritual with my seekers, but we do kind of a uh, we, generic Wiccan, not Wiccan, generic pagan ritual that is, there's kind of a very loose structure insofar as like we begin with a declaration of opening and we do something to consecrate our space, and we do invocations of, like there's a broad structure to it, but it looks very different every time. So we're going to do a different kind of ritual opening and creating of sacred space every single time. And the rationale there, just with the way that this group approaches it, and again, this is in no way standard or something that you should expect across all Wiccan groups. Groups handle things very, very differently. But in my group, the rationale is that there are certain ritual skills that I want people to build before we get to the point of initiation. But they can learn those skills by doing kind of ritual more generally rather than doing something that is specific to Wicca. So that if and when they ever get initiated and they're in a Wiccan ritual, they can sort of look around, and even though they've never seen Wiccan ritual before, they can go, oh, okay, this is the point in the ritual where we're inviting the gods to join us. I know what's going on here, even if I've never seen this thing before. So that's... The cat has found an insect and is performing a vivisection. That's nice. That's all well and good, right? But if I'm not doing ritual that closely resembles initiatory Wiccan ritual in some way, then the rituals that we do with the Seekers group may still have value, right? They still help people to build certain fundamental skills in ritual performance and ritual writing. That's all really good. But they don't solve the original problem over here of how can people tell if initiatory ritual is going to be right for them. And I don't have great answers on this. Some of it is vibes based. Some of it is just kind of sitting with people and watching them and seeing how they react to various things that we do in the Seekers group. So how they react to certain experiences in the rituals that we do. Which rituals do they like more? Which rituals do they like less? And based on what I know about how initiatory ritual in the Coven goes, what does that tell me about how they would be likely to react to the experience of initiatory ritual? We also have conversations about kind of the nature of ecstatic ritual, what it means to be part of an ecstatic religious practice. And, even though structurally nothing that I do with my people really looks like Wicca, in a lot of ways, the ritual that we do in the Seekers group is still striving for that kind of ecstatic experience. And that, to me, is the biggest indicator of whether someone is going to get a lot out of Wicca, is how do they respond to or how do they feel about ecstatic ritual. So that's part of it. Part of it is having conversations and also kind of, again, letting people guide the conversation on their own, letting people bring up their own thoughts, their own concerns. How do you feel about ritual nudity? If that's a concern for you, what about it is concerning? Let's have the conversation. Understanding that in the Seekers group, everyone's clothes are staying on, right? No, I'm never going to ask anybody to get naked with me until we are at a point where we're getting ready for initiation, because that requires a lot of trust. That's a big thing to ask from someone. I wish I had cleaner and more concrete things to say about this. I think it's a real challenge. I think it's a real problem for any Wiccan Coven leader, any initiatory Coven leader, to think about how we assess Not just like whether someone would be a good witch, because you can tell when someone is getting proficient at magic. You can tell when someone is getting proficient at writing ritual, or when they, whatever. Like there are lots of concrete things that you can measure. But how to assess whether someone is going to find value in a ritual experience that they have never had before. That's a hard thing to tell. And, you know, there are groups that do like an outer court style ritual, Wicca with the serial numbers buffed off. There are groups that do something more akin to what I do, where they do some ritual, but the ritual is really not Wiccan in appearance or structure at all. There are groups that don't do ritual, but maybe send their people out, and they'll say, okay, the local heathen group is having a bloat. Go to the bloat and then come back and tell me what you thought about it. Go to the Gnostic Mass that the OTO is putting on, and then come back and tell me what you thought about it. And so that's a way of exposing people to ritual experiences and then having conversations with them about that. But there are also covens that don't do ritual with their seekers at all. And that's entirely legit. I understand where that comes from, because again, I don't feel comfortable doing anything that looks like Wiccan ritual with my seekers. So I get where it comes from. And I think if you're not running a seekers group that cultivates a ritual experience that is designed to feel very similar to initiatory Wiccan ritual, then you have to think about, what am I doing? What are we doing that allows me to assess whether I think this person would get value out of Wiccan ritual, and also allows them to kind of make that judgment call for themselves. Because, right, initiation is something that people need to pursue on their own. We don't just pluck people off the street and say, okay, I think you'd be a good fit for this, I'm going to initiate you. They have to want it. They have to pursue it. So how do we give them enough of a sense of what it is that they're pursuing that they can make that call and say, yes, this is a thing that I want to go deeper with, without giving away the farm? And people have lots of different approaches, right? Like, in my group, in addition to the sort of non-Wiccan ritual that we do, we also have training conversations where we talk a little bit about like magic. We talk about the gods. We talk about the Wheel of the Year. We talk a lot about history, because I am me and I can't help talking about the history. But some of those things have nothing to do with the experience of ritual. The history has nothing to do with the experience of ritual. Some of those things are my way of kind of obliquely getting into, hey, like, if you're listening with the right ears, here are the things that I can tell you about what it feels like to be in Wiccan ritual. And if you're responding to that, that gives me an indication that we're kind of on the right page. So, I don't know. That's all I got for today. For those of you who are coven leaders who have given this matter a lot of thought, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you do or what you look for in order to best understand whether someone who's seeking with you is gonna find value in not so much the initiation ritual itself, but just kind of the monthly or bi-weekly or however often you do ritual, but the regular meetings of the coven that happen after initiation. Because it's a thing I think about a lot. Anyway, have a good night. It's so dark out. Anyways, I'll probably upload this tomorrow, so that people aren't getting this in the middle of the night. I'll talk to you sometime soon. Bye.